friends, I'm here today to do a 2021 goal check-in. I have tried to film this video before and the audio was almost non-existent, so I am attempting to re-record, and so I apologize because this video is just not going to be as sporadic as I like my videos to be, but I'll try to make it fun. 2021, in the beginning of this year, I set some pretty lofty aspirations for myself. I reflected on the year that had passed. I reflected on 2020 and my lack of making the targets that I'd set at the beginning of 2020. So, just kind of looking back, I knew that there were multiple reasons why I hadn't read all the things that I'd wanted to read in 2020. Number one, pandemic that affected everybody. Just because we had maybe more free time didn't necessarily mean that we had the mind space to read or the interest the interest to read or the mind space to focus on books. And that was true for me as well. But it's also 2020 was also my first full year of motherhood, and I was trying to adjust to what that meant or means. So, the short answer to all of that was that 2020, I didn't read all the things that I wanted. And so I pushed most of those unmet goals over to 2021. And in the beginning of the year, it seemed like I was going to meet all of those. But, at the end of August 2021, we are still dealing with COVID. It's not quite the pandemic that it was last year because it's not affecting us all in the same way anymore, but we're still being affected. Like, there's still so much uncertainty, there's still so much change and the constancy of change, and just like a constant need to readjust. So I haven't read all the things. Also this year, and I haven't talked about it on my channel before, at the beginning of the summer, my mother-in-law came to stay with us, and that's been an adjustment of itself. The dynamics in our home changed. Some of the things that I could do, the space and the time that I had to do certain things, there was some upheaval. And so some of the things that I would have done, like in the summer, I just didn't do, couldn't do, didn't want to do. I don't want to talk too much about that, but there have been a lot of changes. So, at the beginning of the year, we set these goals and we think that, I don't know what I was thinking when I set some of these goals. Did I just think that I was just going to sit for like 3 hours every day and read? Even when my daughter takes 3-hour naps during the day, I don't get all that time to read because that's when I catch up on the chores around the house and when I cook and when I try to make phone calls and everything else that needs to be done. So, let's get into what my actual goals were for 2021, and I'll tell you, why I haven't met. Well, I guess I already told you why I haven't met most of them, but I'll give you individual responses. So, one of the overall things that I wanted to do started last year and I'm continuing this year is that I have a few authors that I'm trying to read all of their published novels. I started with Toni Morrison last year. I was doing that challenge with the group, and I think we all fell off last year in March. So I read The Bluest Eye last year. This year so far, I've only read Beloved, so I'm not really going so well in terms of my pacing with reading Toni Morrison's novels, but I'm just going to continue because this is not necessarily just a 2021 goal. It is a goal until I finish. So I'm reading all of Toni Morrison's novels. I'm also trying to read all the books that Barbara Pym published, that Muriel Spark published, and that Maryse Condé has written and continues to write because she's still writing. So 4 female authors that I am trying to read all of their catalog, their oeuvre. How do you pronounce that word? For me, I'm just going to call it catalog because I'm not sure. So yeah, that's one of the overall things that I'm working on. Aside from that, my number goal is 150 books. I am not quite on schedule to meet that number. Goodreads says that I've only read like 57 books, but I know it's more than that because I haven't been updating my Goodreads as well as I should. I'm just not tracking all the things that I'm supposed to be tracking. So yeah, I am not quite on pace to meet that 150 goals, but 150 books. Sorry. But I will read more, and I'll tell you more about that later. The other thing, one of the other things that I wanted to do this year is to revive the Run Right Reads book club. I did that. We have been focusing on Caribbean books this year, and every month we choose a different Caribbean country and read two novels from that country, and that's been going really well. End of August, we have finished now 16 Caribbean books, and I'm calling that the capstone from my 2021 goals, because so far we have been keeping track, keeping up to date, and we discuss the books at the end of the month, and it's going really well. I also plan to review the books here on YouTube, but I'm a little bit behind with those reviews. But we have been reading the books, we have been discussing them in the book club, and so that's been going well. The other thing that I wanted to do with my Caribbean books is that I wanted to continue hosting Caribathon. We had Caribathon this year in June. My co-host for that readathon is Peta from Comfy Cozy Up, and she was just way more active on YouTube, especially for Caribathon this year. We also have a presence on Instagram, and I guess I was more active on Instagram and she was more active here on YouTube. But we hosted Caribathon, and so I'm just always overwhelmed by how many people participate and say that Caribathon helps them to read more books by Caribbean authors, and that is the focus, that's the objective, so that's wonderful. So those two things are complete wins, and they make my bookish goals sound like I'm meeting them. Aside from that, I set a lot of other little challenges that I'm just like nowhere near meeting, so I'll mention them briefly. One is that I wanted to read 50 countries and the 50 United States this year. So I want to read a book that was set in each of those places. I'm not doing well with the states. I could cheat a little bit because I did read a book by a man who had visited all the United States national parks and wrote about it, mentioned different states that he had visited in that kind of travel memoir. So that's a way that I could cheat and like check off a lot of states, but I'm not doing that. Like, that's not the intention. When I set these goals, it's not necessarily to cross things off and say I have met these targets. It is to help me to expand my interest, to read more widely. So I'm not close to reading the states, and of the 50 countries that I wanted to read this year, so far I've read maybe 20, 22, 20 something. So again, not as much as I would like to be at the end of August, but I am reading. I'm reading more. I'm reading more widely, and so that's always a good thing. I also saw this challenge that I wanted to participate in this year that's called the 10 Decades Challenge, being hosted by Reggie Reads on Instagram. And the goal of that is to read a book that is set in each of 10, not set, as I was published in each of 10 different decades. And they don't have to be chronological decades, just 10 decades, 10 books. And I don't think I'm anywhere on track to meet that goal, because most of the books that I've read so far this year have been for things like reading books that publishers have sent me, or reading books for the BookTube Prize. So, those are always new releases or last year releases. So, no, I haven't read 10 decades, but it's good that I'm seeing that was a goal this year, so maybe I can kind of step up and meet that challenge. Another thing that I wanted to do this year was at the end of last year, close to the end of last year, Doris from All the Books, and I read this article that featured Jacqueline Woodson and some reading recommendations that she gave, books that met certain prompts, books that she would recommend for different reasons. And so we came up with a list of some of those books that she had recommended that we wanted to read as well. So Doris and I challenged ourselves that we would read through those recommendations this year, a book per month, because there were 12 books that we both hadn't read. And we started off really strong. In January and February, we read Tayari Jones and Edwidge Danticat, but by March we had kind of fallen off, and we have not gotten back on that wagon. So I don't know how Doris is doing in terms of her plans for the rest of this year, but I am going to try to go back. There are a couple of books that I acquired because I wanted to read them for that reason, and so I will continue with that challenge. This is me saying I'm gonna go back to that challenge, go back to the list, and start crossing off some of those books again. Another thing that I wanted to do this year was just to continue my Booker winning series. I've been trying to read all the books that won the Booker Prize, reading them in the order in which they won the prize, and posting reviews here on BookTube. I'm behind on that. This is a challenge that has been going on for a few years now, but I do want to continue, so I will continue. I have acquired some of the books and I just need to read them and talk about them. So that's coming up soon. And one thing that I don't think is a goal any longer is that I said at the beginning of the year that I wanted to review all the books that I had read this year on Instagram. Um, I have been talking about most of the books that I've read. I either talk about them here on BookTube when I do wrap ups, or I talk about books on my blog, runwright.net, or I talk about them on Instagram, but usually for a specific reason, a current read, or a book that I'm promoting because of a relationship with a publisher or something like that. So no, I'm not reviewing all the books that I have read on Instagram. It's hard sometimes to have my reviews coincide with when I take a pretty picture. I might have finished a book and want to talk about it, but I don't have a picture that associates with it, and all that's nonsense. But yeah, I don't think that's any more. I don't think that's the goal any longer, is what I'm trying to say. Sorry. Aside from that, one thing I have completely failed is to track my reading. Like I said, I don't even know how many books I've read because I'm not tracking them as well as I should. There have just been a lot of adjustments this year. And one of the things that usually gets sacrificed is my alone time. You know, I have my daughter who is with me all the time, and I love that she's with me all the time. But she's now at the place where she writes. She's not writing like anything legible, but if there's a pen anywhere, she starts looking for paper or a book. And so she scribbles everywhere. So like I have my journal, my actual writing journal that I just take out and I let her scribble in it because, that's like a memory being marked in that book. And that's fine. I love that. But as it relates to my reading journal, I don't necessarily want to take it out when she's here for her to scribble all over my things. So I haven't been writing in my journal while she's awake, while she's up. And it seems like she's up all the time. Except now. Now she's actually sleeping. But yeah, I haven't been using my reading journal as much as I'd like to. And that will I'll try to be intentional about spending some of my alone time when she is taking a nap to do that. Aside from that, I don't know. There was a goal that I wanted to talk about that I missed. I actually skipped over one of these, and that is the Reading Women Challenge. So the Reading Women Challenge, if you're not familiar, there's a Reading Women podcast, there's a Reading Women Instagram account, there's a website, and I think there's a YouTube channel specifically for Reading Women. If there's not, then the creators of Reading Women, Jacqueline from 6 Minutes for Me and Kendra, I forget Kendra's channel name. They also have their individual channel names, which I just mentioned. Well, I mentioned Jacqueline's. One of the things that Reading Women does, they promote. They have a list of prompts that you can try to challenge yourself to meet each month as you try to read more books by women. Read a book by a woman author that meets this prompt or fulfills this category. And I haven't been checking that off, like it's in my reading journal. So yeah, haven't been checking that off, tracking it to see how I'm making progress with that. I'm sorry, there are a lot of, I'm tired. I haven't been checking off my progress on that list. But I have been reading a lot of books by women. Most of the books that I've read this year, I think, have been by women authors. So I just need to go through that list and see how I'm doing there, and I'll let you know. So yeah, those are some of the things that I wanted to do in my bookish life in 2021. And overall, I'm not on track to meet most of these goals, but the ones that I am keeping up with, I'm doing really well. So I guess this is just my way of reminding myself of what I need to pay more attention to in the next few months. Today's the last day of August. September is going to be a big month for me. September, big in a lot of ways. September is my birthday month. My birthday is on September 5th. So I celebrate all month long. So one of the things I'm going to be doing in September to celebrate is I'm going to be trying to post a book review or response here on my channel every day. 30 days, 30 reviews. Not necessarily reading 30 books, but reviewing 30 books. So some of these reviews might be books that I've previously read that I just didn't talk about. Like I told you, I have to review some of the Caribbean books that we've been reading for the book club. So 30 reviews I'm expecting to do, I'm hoping to do, I'm intending to do in September. And I'd love for you to share that experience with me. So look forward to more videos coming soon. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and do that. I would love to have you be a part of this whole experience. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. I work really hard on this video, probably harder than I've ever worked on a video. Not because I'm editing, because I am going to just post this video as it is. I'm sorry for the gaffes. But I have spent so much time working on this video because I recorded it yesterday. It was lovely. My daughter was sleeping when my husband came home early and he made a little cameo appearance. But then the audio was almost non-existent because my microphone, I don't know, my microphone on my phone seems to not be working. And then I recorded a few different attempts and none of those are working either. So this is why I'm using this cord and hoping that this works so that I can use this until my microphone that I have now been forced to order arrives. So I've worked really hard on this video, even though you won't see any of those earlier attempts. So please go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments down below how you're doing with your 2021 reading goals, if you set them, if you are on track to meet them, if this helps you to remember to assess your goals and see how you're doing. I hope that my failures leads to someone else's success. Not just mine. Mine too, but not just mine. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Give me a thumbs up like I said. And until next time, happy reading. Bye.